This episode of the Disney Dish Podcast is sponsored by TouringPlans.com, where you can find trip planning tools and advice for Walt Disney World, Disneyland, and Universal Studios Orlando. Disney Dish listeners can subscribe with discount code DISH2013. That's DISH2013 to get 25% off a one-year subscription to TouringPlans.com. Check it out as soon as you're done listening. Thanks!
Attention children, please be advised that there are reports of wild adults roaming the area.
The views expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect those of TouringPlans.com or any other network podcast partners.
Welcome back to another edition of the Unofficial Guide Disney Dish Podcast with Jim Hill. Is I, Len Testa. Jim Hill is here as always, and we are continuing our post-Lemur adventures. Today we're going to be talking about the new rides at Universal, the new Transformers ride, and also what's going on with the new Harry Potter Diagon Alley attractions over at Universal. Jim has just got back from a press junket there. It was a 6-month adventure over there? 2 days?
36 hours?
36 hours, 6 months, whatever. It's all the same.
I mean, we arrived at midnight on Tuesday night. We left at noon on Thursday.
So close enough. All right, so welcome back to the show, Jim.
Yep.
So the reason why we did the show is I just finished up the touring plans for the next edition of the Unofficial Guide, and one of the interesting things that I was looking at when I was modeling the new Universal Studios timeline was what would the effect be with a new Gringotts Bank coaster, and also a 30% increase in the rest of the attractions of the park. And it turns out that it's actually kind of scary to see what happens. Essentially, you're for a touring plane, you're either first in line for Gringotts or you do it last. There's no go see Gringotts at 10 a.m. because of the effect that essentially you'll see at the studios what you saw at IOA when Harry Potter came in, that you either went to it very, very first thing in the morning, or you literally waited out the crowd until everyone had to go home and you jumped in line at the last minute. And we think it's going to be somewhat the same thing for Universal when it opens. The interesting thing with Universal, though, is they've got all these attractions up front. They've got Despicable Me, they've got Shrek, they've got Rip Ride Rocket, they've got Transformers all in the front of the park. They've got the new Diagon Alley stuff in the back, and then they've got the beginnings of Simpsons, Springfield, USA, over on the Simpsons side. So Jim, what is Universal thinking in terms of this development? Are they number one? Are they planning are they expecting a 30% increase in crowds like they got for?
Yeah, in fact, that it's been kind of interesting chatting with them. For example, about the Hogwarts Express, they had anticipated that this is really just a transportation system from one park to the other. There's going to be some themed elements. You're going to be attacked by both the Death Eaters and Dementors and Root, and you're going to see some wonderful Scottish countryside. But it's only a 3 or 4 minute long transportation system. They've only just realized from doing guest surveys that this is almost as big a draw, if not bigger, than Gringotts. The notion of, I'm going to get to ride the Hogwarts Express. I'm going to get to go to platform 9 3/4. And they're just now.
I think we should tell people when we're there that you have to run up against a wall. It's a trick door. Just run up against the wall really hard. You should totally do that. I'm full of good ideas this afternoon, aren't I?
And here's your souvenir Harry Potter nose breaking kit. It's like nose splint.
Exactly.
Okay.
They're looking at it, and so originally, right? It was going to be when I first heard about it, I'm like, okay, this is Universal's version of the Wildlife Express train at the Animal Kingdom. It's going to sort of get you to another point, but it's not really an attraction in and of itself. But then I heard it's we're going to add some effects. Yeah. Then I heard, oh my God, it's going to be different effects both ways. Yeah. Then I heard, okay, it's an actual attraction in and of itself.
Yeah, and now just working the numbers of the fact that if you take a full load on both parks, there's just no way every guest is even going to get to experience the one-way trip, let alone going, just to go to experience both of these movies.
So I heard too, they're actually going to run 2 trains simultaneously instead of having just one train go back and forth.
That seems to be in fact, what's interesting is there's supposedly been some very, very, very late in the game conversations about, can we get another train on? Can we get another car on? Because they're just now realizing that, and more to the point, that guests who have been previously to Hogsmeade and Hogwarts Castle are going to want to start their day over at Diagon Alley, do everything there, and then go over.
Right, yeah.
And it's just the notion of people who stand in line for 2 hours to get on a train are so much less likely to buy crap when they finally get over.
That's true. And I mean, how much capacity can a train possibly have?
That's it exactly.
Yeah, so that's a bit crazy.
But now to double back on what you were saying earlier about, for example, Despicable Me and Rip Ride Rocket, or Transformers and Diagon Alley.
Yeah, so this is interesting. So when we look at it from a touring plan perspective, we look at it when we look at theme park design. One of the key hallmarks of good theme park design is you put your headliner attractions in every different corner of the park, and essentially you draw people that way. And it's exactly the opposite right now at Universal, because they've got Despicable Me, Shrek, Rip Ride Rocket, and Transformers, literally all within 400 yards of the opening of the park.
But this is again what's fascinating about Universal Creative, which again just want to stress, you've got a lot of veterans of like Mike West, who are former Imagineers, who are, it brings some very interesting, lots of experience at the table, and lots of interesting ideas. And the concept that Universal has decided to go with is, for example, when you have an attraction like Rip Ride Rocket, this amazing coaster in the middle of the park, and what they saw when they opened it was, my God, people who normally would come in and make the right and go down to Men in Black or E.T. or The Simpsons.
Up the street, go to Mummy.
Yeah, they're now going straight ahead and they're going to Rip Ride Rocket. So it's like...
Yeah, Mummy for the first 2 hours the park is open is essentially a 5-minute wait.
Yep.
Because everyone gets stuck up there.
Mm-hmm. So we need, in order to sort of, keep the crowds for Rip Ride Rocket under control, we need a speed bump. And that's literally why Despicable Me wound up being put into the Jimmy Neutron building. Yes, they use the old ride system, and it's a really clever, repurposing of that.
It's not a bad ride.
But more to the point, it stops you. It's like, and in fact, that's why they spent all that money building Gru's house. When you walk in, and you immediately, oh my God, that's Gru's house! I have to go. I gotta be a minion. So, and just for me, when you understand that's Universal's new business plan.
So they built Despicable Me to slow people down for Rip Ride Rocket?
Rip Ride Rocket,
Oh, okay.
All right. Now, look at where Transformers is located.
Across the street from, it's still in Production Central.
Right.
By the lagoon.
But it's en route to Diagon Alley. And what their whole, in fact...
So actually there's two of the ways that you could get to 2 to 3 ways that you could get to Diagon Alley. You either through Production Central or back behind Mel's.
Yep.
You either go through the back or the front of Transformers. The only way to really not see it is to go all the way down Rodeo Drive.
But even then, all right, so even if you make the turn by Mel's, you see, Optimus Prime at the top of the building.
Yeah, you still see it. Yeah.
All right, but say
you'd have to go all the way down by Transformers by Terminator 2.
But it gets even funnier. Okay, you're going to outsmart everybody. You're going the long way around the lake. Where do you end up? Springfield.
Yes, exactly.
All right, just when you look cold-bloodedly what they've done that park, it's like, look. Whatever they can do to slow you down, to sort of...
To siphon some people off.
Yeah.
To cull the herd.
Yeah, it's brilliant design.
Yeah. And eventually, when everything is built, when they've got a fully fleshed out Springfield, when they've got a fully fleshed out Diagon Alley, and they've got the other attractions at the front of the park, they'll have their sort of three-corner offense there. And maybe with World Expo, they'll have 4, but whatever.
No,
so it's a good idea.
And again, when you think about this is a resort that will be celebrating its 25th anniversary in 2015, and all of this stuff coming online, it's a fascinating time to watch what they're doing with these parks and with these properties. That coupled with bringing their first value resort online, which...
Oh, Cabanas, yeah.
Yep.
So the theme for Cabanas is sort of like 50s and 60s family beach trip?
And in fact, what was so funny is when Nancy and I went and did the sort of the informational session this week, they mentioned specifically Wildwood, New Jersey, which has, actively worked at protecting the architecture of the late 1950s, the early 1960s, the Googie type stuff. And, it just...
Some of the finest architecture America's ever had, by the way. My house was built in 68. It's a mid-century modern. I totally get it.
But what's actually kind of brilliant about what they've done is that you walk into their sample room. First of all, it's an 1,800-room resort, 900 standard rooms, and 900
it's huge.
suites.
Yeah, it's... Yeah.
But all of the rooms are done in that again, you're walking onto the set of Mad Men.
gonna be
And
great.
in fact, that's what's really kind of interesting about this is that this resort was supposed to be. They had been talking about building this resort since Royal Pacific opened.
Really? Since,
All right.
what was that, 99?
10 years.
Yeah,
You get 10 years plus. Okay. But what ends up happening is that they hem, they haw.
2001 for
Yeah.
Royal Pacific, right?
Yeah, and so when they finally decide to turn the key on it, this goes from being maybe that idea works to again. You're launching this in the era of Mad Men. You're launching this in and they say what's weird. I mean the Russ Dragon or Dagon, the creative on this for Universal, was talking about it. Said, we finished the design for it, and I showed it to my kids, and said, "Oh, that's cool, Dad." And I showed it to my mom, and it's like, "Oh, I want to stay there." And it's like
every generation.
It's like that never happens. All right, you never get, just like, "Oh my God, we hit a vein, we didn't know."
That's true.
But it's
So they're going to have 900 standard rooms.
Yeah, sleep
900
4.
suites. Yeah, sleep 4. The suites are interesting because it has like a sort of a privacy slider.
Well, that's in fact they were so proud of the fact that the way they've set up the bathroom.
The bathroom was an interesting layout. I've seen this in the diagrams. Yeah.
The gimmick is that 3 people simultaneously can be getting ready.
Yeah, I saw it.
And they're talking look, we built this resort. I mean, the 2 feature pools with a lazy river, with a 10-lane bowling alley.
10-lane bowling alley, laser river. Yeah, I mean, just in terms of but no sit-down restaurant, just counter
food
service.
Food court.
Yeah.
They will do
pizza delivery. And
there you go.
Yeah.
But it's the idea is like, look, you're staying here. We want you to have fun, but we also know you're here to go to the parks. And in fact, they are actually continuing the garden walk that started at Portofino. It's going to continue all the way.
It's a great walk.
Yeah, from the northernmost tip of the property, Portofino, to the southernmost tip.
Okay, and that'll alleviate some of the pressure on their transportation systems too.
But that's the other thing. It's shuttle buses.
Yeah, you knew it was going to have to be shuttle buses. I mean, so 1,800 rooms, 3-point-something people per. They're looking at 6,000 people just in that hotel when it's full.
And the scary thing is, and we were just talking about this earlier, if they're early entry and Portofino is early entry, and
so this is the thing. This is the thing we couldn't figure out. This is the thing I was trying to noodle. Right. So right now at IOA, Universal or Lowe's hotel guests get in early to Harry Potter.
Yep.
But we know that the maximum capacity for Diagon Alley is 8,000 people. There's more than that staying at the Universal resorts.
Yep.
So how are they going to... So if they give the Universal resort people preferential access for the first hour, no one's getting into Diagon Alley who's a day guest until like 11 o'clock. How is that going to work? Did you know?
That they are... One of the reasons they are speeding construction along, in fact, just being in there a couple days ago, the steel's in place. The facades will start going up probably within the next, first they're going to have to enclose the buildings, but facades will be going up by late summer, early fall. They want to be doing soft opening and tests and guest traffic patterns by January or February. They want
spring. Yeah,
they want a lot of time to get a sense of how many people we can fit into this thing comfortably, how we can move people along. Because the very thing you're talking about, they and the irony is that they're going to use this as a hook to get people to stay in the hotel. That you get in there early.
Yeah, I mean, because otherwise you'll never get in, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
And I don't know, that's the one sort of fly in the butterbeer, for the lack of a better term. They just are concerned about capacity in the Hogwarts Express. They're concerned about how many people they can fit into Diagon Alley. They want people to go away from this. With Springfield open and with Transformers, they want them to go out and evangelize about the amazing experience they had, because they want. And in fact, this is what we were talking about earlier. Look, Universal knows it's the number 2 in the market.
Yeah.
Behind Disney, and they're always going to be behind Disney.
Yeah, they just don't have the resources to compete on that level. But they can be a really good number 2.
They can be a great number 2.
And they can. And we were talking about this. The Magic Kingdom is always going to be the most popular park.
Yep.
Epcot may always be number 2. But I think the 3 and 4 positions are still in play in Orlando.
Absolutely. And if think about it, if if Universal Studios sees the 30, and again, that may be really idealistic, the 30 to 35 attendance bump that we saw.
I don't think so.
Really?
I think it's entirely doable.
Wow.
It's going to be insane. I don't know what they're going to do because remember now some of those attractions now that are older.
Yeah.
Right. Those were built for 6 to 9 million people a year.
Yeah.
You try and put, let's say they average 7.5. You go from 7.5 to 12 or 14 million. There's only so much capacity they can add to, like for the Simpsons ride, right?
Yep.
They're not going to add any more simulators.
Yep.
I mean, because if they did, they'd have to tear down the building.
Yep.
Men in Black, they're not going to add. I mean, they can add a few more cars, right?
Yep.
But beyond a certain point, they can't have the cars touching.
No. Though it's interesting you bring that up because there evidently has been some conversation about the very issue you're talking about. There's an expansion pad behind Men in Black, and the argument is like, look, rather than build a brand new ride, what if we were add 2 or 3 new rooms to the attraction?
Oh, and then add more cars to it.
Yeah,
that'd be easier to do.
And then you can bump out your capacity. I mean, you still have the same issues with load. You still have only so many people. It's still a 30-second load routine.
Yeah, but if you go from like a 6-minute ride to an 8-minute ride, that means you get more cars on. It means your capacity. Yeah.
But they are. That's the interesting thing. There's the 3 to 5 year plan. In fact, if you're a fan of Twister,
go see it
because that supposedly is going away. Because again, the belief is we need another new attraction that's off the main drag that will take people away from Diagon Alley. So that supposedly is getting reworked.
So from Twister all the way down to the end of the street, and then a little bit to the right. I don't know how far Mummy goes to the left of Mummy, but.
Well, you've got the gift shop there, coupled with that Italian restaurant.
Luigi's.
And you need. I mean, again, you're suddenly in Sacred Cow country. You can't really get rid of Beetlejuice because that's a show you can stage multiple times a day.
Yeah.
People. And meanwhile,
but Beetlejuice you can move around. I mean, that's an outdoor venue. You can move. You can pull that to the other side of where Transformers is and sort of put it up against the building if you had to.
But there's also been, for example, conversations about Disaster.
Disaster pulls a lot of people in.
It does, but it also eats up a lot of real estate.
It's a lot of real estate, and it doesn't pull that many people. I mean, the problem with Disaster is going to be like with Monsters Laugh Floor, where people are just going to walk by that thinking, oh, that's a lovely facade, and just keep going.
No, that's there, and that coupled with the fact that you still need back of the house areas that you can do Halloween Horror Nights because that makes an insane amount of money for the company.
Yeah, the alcohol involved there is just
so you can't, there are certain areas you just can't bump out into because for those 3 or 4, months out of the, 2 or 3 months out of the year.
Where it does that.
And coupled with, you've got a 3 or 4 month build for those things.
What are they going to do with their restaurants? Like, so if Luigi's. First of all, they're in-park dining in the studios is probably literally the weakest component of anything at Universal. Have they talked about doing anything with dining?
Well, we got.
So what's the food component for Diagon Alley? Let's put it that way. Because I actually think Three Broomsticks is the best restaurant in either park.
They're being a little tight-mouthed about that now because, of course, the food component they want to talk up is what they just opened at Springfield, the Springfield-themed food court.
What's that?
Well, for example, they have
Moe's.
They have Moe's where, and again, we sampled Duff Light, Buzz Cola. And in fact, the Flaming Moe it's a fascinating drink. What they do is it's a citrus drink that it's served in a cup that actually has kind of what looks like the top, for lack of a better description, the top of a sewer, because what they've done is they put in the bottom of the glass dried ice.
Really?
So you pour the drink, but it's the genius of the design of the cup is because of the grid pattern, like this tabletop here.
Yeah.
You pour the liquid through, the dry ice is below on the bottom, fizzing up through the grid, so you're not drinking the dry ice. And of course, when you put liquid on top of it, it dissipates.
Yeah.
But
it's a mist.
It's it just bubbles and foams in front of you. It's really
called the Flaming Moe's.
It's called the Flaming Moe.
Genius.
But again, but they went through all 25 seasons of The Simpsons. And
what's that like? I mean, that's 22 episodes, 25 seasons, so 550 half-hour shows.
And the thing of it is, it's going through and picking out, the restaurants that people remember. For example, I asked her, well, were there any you didn't do? Said, yeah, well, we didn't do Kentucky Fried Panda. We wanted to, but but Cletus's Chicken Shack is there, and the Frying Dutchman.
The Frying Dutchman is there.
But part of the problem wasn't. I was talking with Steve Jason, the gentleman who's in charge of food at Universal. You have the Simpsons only introduce food when they're making fun of food.
Yeah, the food is supposed to be bad.
Yeah,
The Simpsons,
in fact,
right?
for example, Krusty Burger is supposed to serve the worst hamburger on the planet, and so, for Steve's case, it was like, well, I can't serve bad food, so I gotta make it look like a cartoon. So they literally went out and found a bun that is literally, that when you see a burger depicted on television, that weird rounded shape, they found a bun that looks just like that.
Oh, that's awesome.
And for it also to be fun cartoon food, what they decided to do is take, let's put too much sauce in it. For example, instead of having a cheese slice, let's do a cheese whizzy kind of a thing on it.
Cheese sauce.
So when you're eating, the sauce dribbles down your face. You suddenly have that cartoon moment of having to grab for too many napkins.
That's great.
But that's the thing, that he's served up all of this quality food, Simpsons, but all the side. In fact, that's what's great about it is the Simpsons. They actually took the food out to California to get, Matt Groening and everybody to sign off on it. So they filled this conference room with the food. And here were the writers who actually wrote the food. And one of the writers walks into the room and looks down at, evidently the sandwich they sell called the aorta burster. And the guy is like, that's it. That's exactly.
That's what it was in my head.
That was it. And you made the sandwich in my head real. And it's like, oh my God, this is so scary.
This is the thing you call the aorta buster?
Yeah.
I'm so happy.
So, but they were so thrilled, they then turned around and wrote all of the menu boards for the restaurant. So honestly, don't just go there and order the food. Read the sign, all of the signs. I mean, this world is so deep, so dense, particularly for a Simpson fan. In fact, that's the... And again, what's always interesting about Universal is they always have an eye toward the fans for the UK. And it turns out, as popular as the Simpsons are in the States, they're hugely popular.
Are they really?
Yeah, in the UK. Even bigger. And so that's the thing of, don't worry about the fried food.
We'll take it.
They'll go for it. But they also, as part of this event, took us on the other side of the construction fence to visit, for example, where they're working on Kang and Kodos' Twirl and Hurl.
Yeah.
And
Twirl and Hurl, yeah.
Twirl and Hurl. And that's actually kind of Universal didn't do just your normal spinner. This is, what's cool about this one is that you are riding in flying saucers that spin around. Kang is in the middle of the coaster shouting orders at you about destroy Springfield. But there's a ring of tentacles, stationary tentacles, rising up around the attraction. And in each of these tentacles is a picture of a citizen of Springfield. And each of the ride vehicles, your spinner, has a ray gun. And you get to shoot at these things. And if you hit them, the photo spins and you hear, or you hear that character's voice. I mean, it just, again.
That's great.
And right beyond this is the outdoor Duff Gardens, which, again...
Duff Gardens?
Duff Gardens. But no,
like Busch Gardens?
Yes. But no, you will love this. The absolutely killer touch of this is that outside of Duff Gardens is the 7 Little Duffs, all right? 7 little, including Surly, all right?
Surly.
But done in topiary, done in topiary form, all right? Just marching alongside the building.
Beautiful.
But they're doing, again, what's just so fun about talking with the Universal guys is, for example, they built the donut store from Springfield, Lard Lad, and it was a great pride to Mike West that the fact that he managed somehow to get the Lard Lad statue is actually larger than the Optimus Prime that is standing on top of the entrance, the Transformers. So he says, so when they come to life,
exactly.
Lard Lad can take out Optimus.
Because it did in one of the Simpsons episodes.
No, that's exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So for that sadly again they're being a little reticent about Diagon Alley food because the Simpsons stuff is all in the front window.
Yeah.
But that all comes online. Everything's ready to roll midsummer. I think at the absolute latest, August 1st, and then it's all full bore. Of course, you've got to get through Halloween Horror Nights and Christmas.
Yeah.
But they're going to be build. But I honestly, if you want to get an early taste of Diagon Alley, I would schedule family vacations for February, March.
You think that soon?
Honestly, Len, they are so concerned about capacity. I mean, again, the very thing you're talking about. They think they can get 8,000 people in there, but they want to be They want to be in a situation where, for example, if you're staying at the Portofino or the Hard Rock or that sort of thing, some morning a leaflet will come under the door and like, hey, would you come
from
on?
5:45 a.m. until 6:23 a.m.
Yeah, you want to come over and do something for us.
Interesting.
So it's next late winter, early spring of next year would be a really smart time to schedule your vacation. I mean, and don't get me wrong, it's going to be intermittent.
Yeah.
They're not going to do it every single day, and they're going to probably swap it out to different resorts.
And just sort of walk people through to see what the test is.
Yeah, and just
how it tests. I mean,
because look, it's Gringotts Coaster.
Diagon Alley is supposed to be 4 or 5 stories tall in some places.
Yeah.
And it's all retail and food.
Yep. Well, but again,
except for Gringotts and one other ride, right?
Well, but the belief is that what really changed the game was Ollivanders.
Okay.
All right. I mean, think about it. That how many people stand in that line for an hour?
They actually cap the line at an hour now, so so nobody gets heat stroke.
Yeah. But you get into that
every day the line's an hour.
Yeah. And the 24 people cram into that little shop.
Well, when I was there, when we were there, October. I wanted to buy some souvenirs for some of my friends that were here. I waited 40 minutes to pay.
Yeah.
To pay.
Yeah.
I waited it was like go to the Apple store at Christmas, where it's like, please take my money faster, please.
Well, that's what they're hoping Diagon Alley will take. I mean, they're hoping that sales levels don't necessarily fall, but the lines will.
Well, they'll do crazy business because they'll have more merchandise. It'll be more. You could have your Hogwarts stuff. You could have your Diagon Alley stuff, and it would be different. I heard they're going to duplicate Ollivanders.
Yeah, actually, this is going to be you got to remember that the Ollivanders is sort of the satellite store. The notion is that you're at Hogsmeade, you break your wand. This is where you go. Yeah. In Diagon Alley is the real and they're in the style of Mickey has 4 friends. There are going to be 3 Ollivander shops. You're going to be you'll enter the lobby and you'll be directed into the sales room. So there'll definitely be able to hump more people through that space.
That's a great show, by the way. I really like it.
It is honestly it's. But at the same time, it occupies an interesting space in the history of theme parks. Because think about it: the child who's selected for this thing has that wonderful experience. And and then the wand chooses them, and you get that amazing lighting effect and the music.
Oh yeah, it's great.
And the show continues, but it's always what I'm always fascinated by is the handoff. That the employee continues to talk who's run the show, but there's a team member that pulls the family and the child over and goes, "Look, the wand selected you, but you still have to buy the wand." Yeah. And supposedly upwards of 85% of the families do in fact do that.
How do you not? Yeah.
No, that's it exactly. But this then they're using this as the justification for the fact that starting, next summer, there are going to be people who buy that one park ticket for Islands of Adventure and see the Hogwarts experience like, oh.
I want to go. Oh, that's what okay. I get it now.
Yeah.
So they're going to, so the Hogwarts is going to run from Iowa to the studios and back.
Right.
So you think people are going to get there? They're going to say, "Oh, what's this one attraction? Oh, but you can't go on it because you've only got the one-day, one-park ticket."
There you go.
But conveniently, there's a ticket booth probably right next to.
That's it exactly. That's it.
What a coincidence.
And the other thing just to be aware of, they're not done. All right, even when Diagon Alley opens, there is a plan. In fact, this is what was fascinating actually about the development of Diagon Alley. When Harry Potter opened, Wizarding World first opened, it was so hugely popular. Like, we got
8 an hour wait to get in the park. Right?
Yeah, I mean, 30,000 people standing in line, ringing, the lagoon just to, going in from a superhero island all the way up through Jurassic, waiting to get in. They went to JK. And they were like, we want to expand. We want to do Diagon Alley. We'll just build it right next to it. We'll flatten Lost Continent. And and Rowling immediately came back. No, you can't do that. And it's like, because Hogsmeade Village and Hogwarts Castle are far away from London.
You have to take a train.
That's exactly. And it was one of these things where it's like, and they left the meeting like, oh man, she won't let us expand. And it's like, no.
But she said they're far away.
They're far away. It's like, they're far away. Put it in the other park. And they go scampering off. But that doesn't mean that if they can, that the belief in-house, and evidently they've talked with her, is that, well, look, if we do things that are around Hogwarts Castle, we can still build them at next to Hogsmeade. And it's like, yes. So there is a plan for a
Lost Continent is just going away. I mean, it will really.
Well, the only thing that's sacred supposedly is Mythos, and even that's up for negotiation.
I'd be okay with it.
Another lamb skewer, please.
Yeah, I mean, it's had its day anyway.
But supposedly, the notion is to just take the entrance, slide it further down the hill. You put a Whomping Willow spinner in. And you take, for example, Poseidon's Fury, the existing structure there, and you actually use that as a Chamber of Secrets attraction.
Oh,
so, I mean, you've only seen... you just
saw the first film.
All right, so you see full... All right, Sorcerer's Stone.
Yeah, don't ruin the next, 12? Okay. 15, 23 films?
Okay. After you see Chamber of Secrets, you'll understand what's going on inside of...
that was National Treasure Book of Secrets, sorry.
Yes, right.
Nicolas Cage was in that?
There we go, that's right. All the treasure in the world. And John Voight.
John Voight, exactly.
So, but yeah, you're
so they have like a 10-year plan that's even farther out.
Creep it down the hill, and and then you'll just have one giant Harry Potter. And supposedly there are, the argument is that we could make the stunt show go away. You could bump out Diagon Alley over at the studio.
If anything needs to go, it's the stunt show.
But at the same time, it's like, what is it? 10 months out of the year, you're not really doing capacity on that. Yep. But then you're doing Halloween Horror Nights, you're doing Bill and Ted, and you need that venue.
Oh yeah, you need the venue.
So crap. I mean, again, it's just that's the way. The interesting thing when you're talking with theme park guys is it's almost like having conversations, fourth dimensional conversations. Like, 10 months out of the year, we don't do what we need, but we make so much money during those 2 months. That
it all balances out.
Yeah, so it's like, I know. You're looking at it, you're standing there in August, and why is this empty? It's like, come back here in September. And,
We're making money hand over fist. Interesting.
So
cool. So starting in the spring, so head down now, you can see Transformers, you can see Springfield.
Yeah, definitely. And again, Transformers is worth it alone. In fact, you of all people would be fascinated. They had to build this giant attraction in the middle of the park, but they had 30,000 square feet. But they had 60,000, square feet of attraction. So it's literally, it's a ride on top of a ride. But you have to move guests from the first floor to the second floor. They have, and this is the challenge for Touring Plans listeners, that there are 2 media silos in this thing. You roll into, in fact, there are 2 media silos that are side by side. There's actually 4 of them. So they can throw a different ride vehicle in each of them. They're 60 feet tall, and you get inside this tube. You're surrounded 180 degrees with high-def, action-packed film that's been put together by Industrial Light and Magic. But it's a 40-second show just rising you up at that point to move you to the second floor, where you then go through...
The best elevator in the world.
No, that's
the most
exactly.
expensive.
And
Otis is looking at that going, we can't. We can't.
But we can shake the bottom. But no, it's amazing technology, great storytelling, and in fact, the weird thing is Spielberg himself came out for the opening of this thing yesterday, and it was so funny. It was actually that they're walking little teeny tiny. Steven Spielberg is this far away from being one of the Seven Dwarfs at this point. He's just just getting smaller and grayer. But they brought him in and they had him positioned across from the entrance of the attraction, and it was so funny to watch Steven Spielberg become a human being. Because they had this great, sitting next to the press area, next to the camera platform, and I see the head of publicity like frantically wave and chase across the street, and Steven is standing there with the president of the Universal Parks, and you could actually see from the gestures what the conversation is. Steven has his phone out. All right.
And hold on, I need to tweet this.
And it's just one of these things. Where are things going to happen? And so they had to say, well, the jets are going to fly over here, and the things are going to. And so it's like literally telling the world's greatest film director where to line up his shots.
All right, you want to be here and maybe a countdown from 3.
Yeah. And so, but to
I
watch.
want to slope in and then just sort of dissolve over by Transformers.
But it was just kind of sweet to watch him pull out his phone and do it. Just I want to be able to show the kids at home that hey, I was there and oh look the jets and even a Steven Spielberg just he could be ridiculously jaded at this point. I'm at the theme park and I want to know what to shoot. So
he wants to know what angle to take on everything.
Yeah, so
that's fantastic. All right, cool. So now for those attractions, and then you think late spring for Cabanas in Diagon Alley?
Well, Cabana's the first 600 rooms of Cabana open first quarter of
I heard March sometime.
And in fact, that they're taking reservations right now, starting March 31st, and they're hoping. They'll actually have it open a little earlier in March so they can do
Easter and spring break.
And test guests and that sort of thing. Yeah. The other 1,200 rooms will not open till
like in
summer.
Phases, summer or fall.
And in fact, that's to be honest, the only reason I would tell people maybe to hold off on Cabana is that when the second wing opens, that pool is the one that includes the lazy river.
Okay.
So, but it looks amazing and. But it's a fascinating 1-2 punch to open, Diagon Alley and this.
And the prices on Cabanas too. I mean, it's somewhere between Disney's. It starts at under $100 a night for the.
Well, standard rooms we were quoted $117 for the rooms that sleep 4, $175 for the rooms that sleep 6, which is
much less than a Disney suite.
Yeah.
So they're really sort of taking aim at Disney's values and then the art of animation.
Now, when I was talking with David Bartek, he's the rep for Lowe's that handles these hotels, he admitted that they went out, they looked at art of animation, and they looked at Nickelodeon suites. And the whole notion was, okay, we understand about families coming to this resort. In fact, the thing that David was proudest of, I mean, don't get me wrong, they worked hard to make sure these rooms look 1950s, 1960s. For example, the rooms have flat screen TVs, but it was like, look, the only way a flat screen TV works in this environment is you hang it on the wall and you put a wooden frame around it. It's a picture, all right? It's mom and dad.
Classic.
Yeah. But at the same time, he said, look, I have 4 kids, and when my 20-year-old goes into a hotel room, it's like he doesn't need an outlet; he needs multiple outlets.
Yeah, 12 outlets.
He's got to.
Oh, that's right. They put this in the press release. How many outlets there are in the?
No, that's it exactly. It's going to have a 50s, 60s look, but it's the first time ever where it's like you're not on your hands and knees looking for outlets. There are out. In fact, he was talking about, for example, the redo they just did at Portofino. It was like same thing. It's like you go into a Portofino hotel right now. You sit down at the desk. You look at the leg of the desk. There are 6 outlets sitting there in the leg.
They essentially built the leg of the desk out of. It's kind of funny. Normally, they when people do redo rooms, they're like, "Oh, we redid the soft goods, we redid the lighting, we redid the beds." These guys are like, "Hey, we've got more electrical outlets."
And to be honest, think about it. I mean, this is the way
Everyone's
we travel.
got an iPad. Everyone's got a phone.
Yep.
There's probably another device. So every person needs 2 outlets.
Yeah. So
interesting choice.
So again,
it seems like they're putting some thought into this stuff. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Absolutely.
Oh, good. All right, Jim. Cool. Well, thanks very much for your time on that one, Jim. All right, this is Len Testa for Jim Hill. You've been listening to another edition of the Unofficial Guide to Disney Dish podcast with Jim Hill. Please go onto iTunes and rate us and tell us what you'd like to hear next. For Jim, this is Len. We will see you on the next show.